Hello, everyone. I'm Suze. Hang on. Where are we going to? So I'm going to have a nice, happy talk about melanoma and babies today. So a bit of a spoiler, there's a happy ending. I'll do a bit of a whistle-stop tour through my own melanoma story so that you can get the context, and then how to navigate a pregnancy, how to make decisions, and how to live well. And it might not be relevant to everybody, but before I planned this talk, I was thinking that for everybody, there might be, when you had a diagnosis, there might be something that you thought you couldn't do. I don't know what that might be for you, whether when you were told, or whether it's, I can never go on a nice holiday in the sun again, or whatever, or whether it's a big thing or a small thing that you thought you couldn't do. And I just wonder whether maybe you might be able to do it, because that's what happened to me. I'll introduce myself. My husband checked my slides before I did this talk, and he was a bit cross at this one, because I said I was a GP, I'm a stage 4 melanoma patient, I'm a dancer, seamstress, then wife, then mum. And he was a bit mad that I put being a wife under being a dancer and a seamstress. I haven't even sewn for like 2 years. I did make this jacket though, so I wore this on purpose. So yeah, and I also have recently started this thing called Big Me Little C, because I'm really passionate about life, living with cancer and beyond cancer well, and cancer survivorship, and not being scared to do stuff. And I'm also a coach. Some of these pictures of me are in my happy place dancing, and that one with my, spoiler alert, daughter, I just performed in a circus, so that was quite fun, and she got to watch it. So I'll start with my melanoma story, and then we'll go from there. So I was diagnosed with melanoma 10 years ago, about to have my 10-year cancerversary party, very excited. I'm a GP, and so I went from being a medical student to a patient with cancer in about 6 months. So this picture of me as a student, I just passed my finals, and I was on elective, which is basically where you get to go on holiday and pretend it's for learning, but it's not, it's just a holiday. I was in Trinidad. I passed my finals, I got a job in Bristol, loving life, wild at my fingertips. I probably did have a melanoma then, but I didn't know it. And then I moved to Bristol. I don't have any pictures of me being a doctor because it was really hard work and a bit intense, so you don't really take photos of that. But that's my flat the first day we moved in, with no furniture and no money. So that's my doctor picture. And that was in the summer. And then within 6 months, I had a melanoma diagnosis. I had a mole on my chest that I had noticed from medical school, got checked at the Isle of Wight Festival at a free mole checking service by a consultant dermatologist. He said it was okay. And as I don't know how much you know, there's lots of hierarchy in medicine, isn't there? Like, the consultant's really amazing, GPs are really rubbish. And so I thought as a student, I've had a consultant say it's fine. Why would I go back to the GP? Because they're rubbish and the consultants are amazing. So I probably delayed going. And then also I was this little junior doctor, a bit scared to leave. I didn't want to phone for an appointment because I was on ward round, didn't want to leave my team without any members of staff. So I didn't get an appointment for a while. And then I wouldn't go to an appointment until it was post-nights so that I didn't miss work for the appointment. Got referred straight away. And I was initially stage 2. And then they did, Ewan was my surgeon, so he's going to heckle me if I get this wrong. But I had a sentinel node biopsy that was positive, axillary node dissection. And then a bit of an intense year of just kept coming back. It was very annoying. Lots of little bits here, little bits there, quite stressful. There were times when I thought I had Mets that I didn't. I was told about spleen Mets that weren't Mets, lung Mets that weren't Mets but took about 2 years to tell me that. And then eventually liver Mets a year later. There were some happy bits. I got married, and that was fun. So it wasn't all bad. I worked the whole time, apart from a few weeks off for my lymph node dissection. So then in 2016, I had my liver Mets that were unresectable, so I needed immunotherapy. And this was 3 months after the immunotherapy had been approved by NICE to just be given to anybody, not just on trials. So, as I'm sure you can imagine, I had lots of scans. I just had pembrolizumab because that was all that there was for 2 years, every 3 weeks. So I was still working as a junior doctor on the wards. throughout the 3 years I had operations and treatment, I had 12 junior doctor jobs because you move around all the time. So it's a bit intense. And lots of immunotherapy, lots of scans. And I had a response, and that's amazing, and I'm really grateful for it. I had a complete response by the end and was able to stop pembrolizumab. And so that's sort of the context of my baby's story, really. And then I'm going to think about pregnancy now and how to make decisions, how I made decisions about thinking about babies after my stage 4 diagnosis. And I suppose this was also in the context of I'm one of those ones that was at the beginning. The data, you know, those survival curves you see now, they didn't exist when I was making these decisions. When I was told I was stage 4, I thought I was probably going to die, more likely to die than not. And I remember asking you, and I said, I'm going to die, aren't I? And he didn't say no. He just said, we're all going to die, which I actually found helpful. I remember it. But I remember thinking, okay, and especially because I'm a doctor myself, I'm like, okay, I know what's happening here. So like, it was really did think I was going to die, and then suddenly I'm like, oh, I didn't die. What do I do now? I was 24 when I was diagnosed. I was 28 when I finished treatment. My 20s had kind of been screwed up a bit, and sort of the biggest thing that I had grieved when I first found out I had liver mets was not having a family, because I just assumed I couldn't. I assumed I'd be on treatment forever, and then that was that. And it was so important to me, and that was really clear. So there was a lot of decision making. Before I go further, a little caveat. You've seen lots of amazing research here that's very high level. Me talking here, standing on a stage, talking about having babies, is the worst form of evidence. So there's this hierarchy of evidence pyramids where at the top it's the best, where you compare really good trials. I'm worse than a case report because no one's even reported on me. So I just thought it was important to say things out loud when they happen because there's not actually evidence about babies. So that's my little scientific caveat with my doctor head on. So when I was making decisions, I had to think about a few different things. So thinking, if I was imagining getting pregnant, so thinking from my point of view about me, is my fertility affected by immunotherapy? I didn't know whether it had been or whether it hadn't. I'd had some side effects for my thyroid. I had thyroiditis, but I didn't know whether or not I could have a baby. Was being pregnant going to increase my risk of recurrence of cancer? I'm aware that when you're pregnant, your immune system drops, and so then would that mean that the cancer would come back? When you're pregnant, you can't have scans, and I was still having scans, so that would be risky. Or what happens if I'm pregnant and I have a recurrence and then I can't have immunotherapy because I'm pregnant? What do I do then? I also have to think about the baby. So there's theoretically, cancer can spread across the placenta, so although I didn't really necessarily know that at the time, I sort of knew it after I was pregnant, but that is something to think about. And also, what happens if I have a baby and then die, and then I've brought this child into the world and they're growing up without a mum? And everyone else in my life, my husband, Dom, what happens if he's become a single parent? Financial implications of everything, who's going to support him? Is he going to manage with a baby on his own? And so it's not just about me. But there was a lot of questions, and there weren't really any answers. I did ask my oncologist, and at the time, they didn't know anyone who'd had a baby after stage 4. I think that people have now, and I'm sure at the time there must have been in the world, but I didn't know about it. But so it was very unknown. He kind of just, when I asked him, he sort of said, oh, well, we don't really know, but you could try if you want. So he's quite, yeah. So I sort of, yeah, I kind of felt like I had not been given the red light. I'd been given an amber light, I reckon. Not the green light to go ahead, not the red light to not. It was sort of, see what you want to do. Here's a little peek inside my brain. This was kind of just, I'm very logical. I love a star chart. I love a flow diagram. And I was kind of thinking, right, well, either I have a baby or I don't. And either I die or I don't. Because I was still very much in the mindset of I could die still, because I didn't have the 10-year stage 4 data at that point. And I decided, well, it would be nice if I had a baby and didn't die. It would be bad if I died and didn't have a baby. But actually, when I was sort of comparing, so if I was to have a baby and die, to me, that was better than not having a baby and not dying. That's a bit confusing to say out loud, but I think this makes sense. So I felt like, I don't know, I just had something in me that felt that was the right thing to do, and that was how I sort of processed it in my mind. So I decided to go for it. and see what happens. What's the worst could happen? Well, quite bad things, but anyway, I went for it anyway. So we tried for a baby. This was all in, all that thinking was happening in 2019. And then I got pregnant. Whee! And I was suddenly like, oh crap, I'm actually going to do this. And I had so much in my head, that slide before, of all of the different things, the ways that it can impact you, like, and everybody else. And I was so, like, obviously you have lots of health anxiety when you have melanoma anyway. And this was like next level, like every niggle I was stressed about. The reality was that it was COVID. I was in my first trimester in lockdown, and I never saw any oncologists face to face. Like, it was kind of, all of that got surpassed by COVID. And then I was like, oh my God, I'm working as a doctor, I'm pregnant, I've got a cancer history. We didn't know whether or not that put me at higher risk. So I ended up working from home, doing remote consulting as a GP trainee whilst pregnant. And kind of it made, I suppose it almost, in a way, did it help in that it made the melanoma stuff seem less important because there was something bigger and scarier to think about instead. It sort of shifted the anxiety. But it was challenging. I think the hardest thing that was challenging was the being on your own for appointments. I had to be on my own for all my scans. There were lots of being on the hospital. There's lots of, all the time, you all had to be on your own. And there was one time when I had abdominal pain, but around my liver. So my metastases were my liver. And I had pain, and so they wanted me to have an ultrasound scan of it, but not because of cancer, because there can be things to do with pregnancy and livers. But I was obviously like shitting myself that there was actually going to be, they were going to scan me and that there was going to be cancer there, but I had to do it on my own. And I was like, and an ultrasound scan, you see it at the same time and they give you the results at the same time rather than going away and finding the results. And I was literally so stressed. And that they were really kind to me and there wasn't any Mets there. But that kind of thing was pretty scary. But we got through it and we had a baby. This is Daisy. She's 4.5 now. I picked that one with the sunglasses because that's kind of her personality. She's like that. So it went okay in the end, other than all of the COVID dramas. So I kind of immediately had her. And then it went back to cancer a bit, not in a bad way, but just I'd had to delay my scan. So then basically when she was about a couple of weeks old, I had to go and have a CT scan. But it was COVID, I couldn't bring her in, and she was breastfeeding. So I remember my husband was outside in the cold, outside the hospital with her in the pram, like hoping that she didn't need any milk, while I was like hoping that the scanning people weren't running late, hoping that my boobs wouldn't explode whilst having the scan. And then they found a problem on the scan, but then it wasn't a problem on the scan. I'm sure you've had this before, where there's, oh, it's lung mets. Oh no, it's not. It's those lung things from ages ago. So that was all a bit stressful. And I found breastfeeding quite hard because some of the cancer that recurred had been lumps in my breast. So I found it really challenging to not be able to examine myself. But it was okay. Like, it is, I guess I was sort of used to just trying to deal with it. And to be honest, dealing with a newborn with reflux in COVID was harder. So it sort of distracted me from the melanoma stuff. And the fear of recurrence. So, those are the main things that I wanted to say from a Daisy point of view. I've got something that I'm going to read, and then I can sort of make some other reflections afterwards. So what I did, because it's interesting coming back to it now, this was all in 2020 she was born, and I've actually subsequently got another healthy baby. Cute pictures are coming, don't worry. I've got he's 11 months old today. And so second time round, I didn't go through all that stuff in my head because I was like, I've done it once. I've stopped being scanned now. I don't think I've been discharged from oncology, but I've stopped being scanned. I guess because I'm young and they thought that scanning would increase my risk of, I'd be more likely to get cancer from scanning than from not. I've stopped being scanned. I've kind of moved on. I've had a positive experience with having a baby, and I'm sort of out of that like cancer fear phase. And when I was preparing this talk, I remembered that I'd written this letter to my daughter when I was in that mindset of what was going through my mind. And I will give it to her when she's 18. She obviously doesn't know anything about the cancer now. And I just thought that it sort of summarized those feelings quite well. and I hope I don't cry, but we'll see. So I wrote this on the 15th of April, 2021. Here we go. I'll read the whole thing. Dear Daisy, I'm writing you this letter with the intention that you open it around your 18th birthday. It may get written, sit around on my laptop for a number of years, then forgotten. Fingers crossed some maternal part of my brain remembers it's there waiting for you. I've remembered it so far, yes. Happy birthday, gorgeous. We call you gorgeous all the time at the moment. You're just over 6 months old. You are gorgeous, and I think legitimately a cute baby rather than one of those more awkward-looking ones that everyone pretends to the parents are cute, but we all know they aren't. When you smile, you radiate pure joy, and I love that about you. You have a proper belly laugh. Right now, you laugh at us blowing and popping bubbles, blowing raspberries, covering you in kisses, and peekaboo. I'm able to write this letter at the moment as you have really entered a good phase, so I've got the mental capacity to do it. Let's not dwell on those tricky early months. You won't remember them anyway, and we've all survived the experience. I'm guessing you're sick of hearing about COVID, so I won't bore you with the details of having a lockdown baby. Let's just say that a woman on YouTube called Sophie Pickles got us through, and you definitely loved her more than me for a fair while. She was like, did these videos. It's basically the only thing I did with her. I wonder what sort of person you've become. Kind, I hope, and loving. I hope you have things you really love doing, that when you do them, you don't notice time passing. I hope you feel you're able to explore the world and your place in it, and don't feel too pressured into choosing one particular route. Part of the reason I wanted to write this letter is because I'm not entirely sure whether I'll be there, brackets, alive, close brackets, for your 18th or not. It's an odd thing to write to your daughter about, particularly as I have absolutely no idea whether my cancer will play any or no part in your childhood experience. When I married your dad, the cancer stuff was spiraling a bit, and we didn't know if we were able to go on honeymoon until 10 days before the wedding, as there was a chance I would urgently need to start treatment. We did go on honeymoon, and I bet your dad goes on about Iceland all the time, even 23 years after the trip. Anyway, I remember the vows about sickness, health, and death do us part so vividly, and they were just so real to us at the time. I remember writing a wedding speech, not knowing how to talk about a future we didn't know we had. I remember thinking I couldn't imagine being alive for 5 years, let alone starting a family. I really, really hope that all this is an alien concept to you. I'm so lucky to be alive, but I've taken a risk having you, and I really hope you don't resent me for it if I have been unwell or died. I suppose I thought you were too important not to exist, and I knew you would be okay without me, with your dad and family and friends around you. I love you fiercely, your mum forever regardless. I did it! I read it! Yeah, she'd better cry when she reads this. I'll be very disappointed if she doesn't. Here's some happy pictures before we end. So that's my daughter Daisy, my son Robin, husband Dom. We're on our allotment. We're very excited. We grew some potatoes. And the one on the bottom left is us at Glastonbury, because we're trendy Bristolian family. Got to go to Glastonbury. So that was quite fun. Robin was like 12 weeks old, but we put the little headphones on him, and he loved it. So we're all happy, healthy for now, and you just got to take the now, haven't you? And those are my contact details for if you want to. But thanks very much.